Hello and welcome to the Eco Public Speaking course. I'm Rob Parkman, and it's an honor to be with you and to walk you on this journey of becoming excellent at public speaking so that God can use us and bring amazing, lasting fruit through that in our lives. When I was a teenager, I had just freshly come to Jesus, and I remember going to Eston College and other retreats and hearing amazing speakers. And as I heard those amazing speakers, my life was so deeply impacted. And I started to have this desire spring up inside of me to become a communicator, to become a preacher, to become a teacher. And I wanted to help and inspire others like I saw those at that time. They were, in this case, they were young men that were preaching primarily. But I was so inspired, and I started to have these previews in my mind of God using me in the future in different ways. I was thinking about being around Canada and around different countries in the world and speaking and leading people to Jesus and teaching them, helping them grow into their potential. And as I grew and pursued God's call on my life, I've been able to see that happen in many, many ways. And so I want to give you the benefit of all those years of experience and development in this area. As I followed that dream that God placed in my heart as a teenager, I've been able to serve as a pastor, a Bible college teacher, traveling speaker, been able to speak around Canada and in 16 nations around the world. And that was a dream that God had placed in my heart. And so I just want to speak to you now and just say that there's dreams and desires that God has placed in your heart, and there's a reason why you're taking the public speaking course. And I know that out of the many people that will be taking this course, there'll be people that'll be using this in ministry context, which is awesome. And also there'll be many people who will be crossing over and using these skills in the marketplace. So we want to give you a lot of amazing content here that will help you in both of those contexts. And what I'm excited about is the multiplication effect and impact of a course like this. Right now, at the time of recording in the nation of Canada, I actually don't know anyone who speaks more than I do in schools, Bible colleges, at conferences, and community events, and retreats and camps, and the list goes on. And frankly, I am quite excited to empower other people and get other people out there making an amazing impact with God's help. So I'm excited about the multiplication impact of this course. And the last time, or one of the last times that I taught some of this content, I had a couple of pastors in the course, and it was amazing. After just one session, I just felt so excited and so honored. But they went to their congregations and preached messages, and both of these pastors had people from their congregations come up to them afterwards and say, "Best message ever." And so I want you to get excited about the possibilities as you grow in this area, about the kind of feedback that you're going to get and the kind of fruit that you're going to see because God honors the growth and the focus that you placed into this area. One of the things that we notice, just to keep on this theme of multiplication and the opportunity that's really in front of you to impact the world through public speaking and teaching and being a communicator, is Camille and I have been fans of watching The Voice, which you may or may not have seen, but it's an interesting show and maybe a nice way to unwind at the end of the evening. But what we noticed on that show and on shows like that, for example, America's Got Talent or other shows that some people watch at the time of this recording, is that a lot of people who are excellent at singing actually come from the church world. And I would say that that's because they've had the chance to get a lot of reps in and really grow and develop, because where does someone grow and develop if they're not part of the church? So I would say the same thing is true of public speaking, that there's an opportunity for people who come from churches who are followers of Jesus to be leading edge communicators in whatever field that they're in, because you have an opportunity to get lots of reps in and probably hear a lot of really great communicators and maybe sometimes not so great communicators that we can also learn from as well. So I'm excited about the hundreds of people that will be taking this course and will be just delivering content at such a high level that they're going to that'll be rewarding for them personally, but it'll also make a big difference to their listeners. Really excited to have you here. So what we're going to do in this first session is we are going to walk you through 3 steps to get clear on your vision. So we're going to go through 3 steps, because as you get clear on your vision, your motivation level will go up and your dedication to learning this art and the craft of speaking will go up. So let's work on getting as clear as possible. I want you to have a crystallized vision in your mind of how God can use you in even a greater way as you go up to the next level as a communicator. So here's 3 steps. The first step is, number 1, answering 8 clarifying questions. So what I want to do is just walk you through these 8 questions, and this will help you to get as clear as possible on your vision. So let's walk through these clarifying questions. Number 1, what do you most want to see changed in the world? And this is digging down to what you're really burdened about in the world. What do you really want to see changed in the world? Because if you can tap into that, you'll have all kinds of motivation to grow and develop as a communicator. Number 2, what talks have you heard that have personally impacted you? Think about maybe what themes come up in those talks. For example, when I hear talks about people unlocking their God-given potential and overcoming obstacles, when I hear underdog stories, then that tweaks my attention. And there's clues in these questions as far as what you should and could focus on as a communicator. Number 3, what challenges have you overcome? And again, there's a clue there in terms of challenges that you've overcome. Now you know the steps that you can share with other people so that they can also come out of those challenges. Number 4, and I just encourage you to pause as you need to think about each of these questions. In what way do you most want people to succeed? And you can tell that what I'm doing as I'm asking these questions, pardon me, is that I'm trying to tap into your deepest motivations in life. Number 5, what response to your talks would make you feel the most fulfilled? Number 6, what do you most pray for or desire for other people? Number 7, what would those closest to you say matters most to you? And number 8, what do you want your legacy to be? So I hope those will help you as you clarify your vision. And I would say, as I reflect on those questions, that makes me think, for example, of the heart I have for people in the nations. In my journey with God, I've just had this sense that God wants me to have an impact on the nations. And so when I reflect on those questions, that comes through as a theme. And one of the ways that I've fulfilled that is by doing quite a bit of work with Compassion International as a speaker. And I'll share a story about that in just a couple of minutes. So we're working on getting clear on your vision. I trust those 8 questions are really going to help you. And I encourage you to share your answers to those 8 questions with someone so that you can just get, again, just more clear on where you're headed to as a speaker and what your particular vision is as a communicator. Okay, number 2, writing your purpose statement. So I want to walk you through a brief process of writing your purpose statement, and it goes like this. I help blank to blank so that they can blank. So I help blank. That first blank is your audience, your target audience, to blank. That's the outcome that they want to see in their lives so that they can blank. And that's where you're going to list all the benefits that come to people there. So I could say, as a trainer, as a teacher in this course, I could say, I help people who have a passion to communicate truth to absolutely hit home runs when they give talks so that they can have joy and know that their lives are making a big difference to the lives of others. Or in other contexts, I could think of when I'm speaking in schools, I could say, I help high school students to achieve mental wellness so that they can be free of suicidal thoughts and move into their full potential that they've been created with. So I'm sure you'll get the picture. So go ahead and think about what your personal purpose statement is. And you might also think of this as your value proposition. So if someone is thinking about inviting you onto their stage or to speak at their event or to speak in their church, they're wondering, like, what makes you unique? What do you bring that other people don't bring? And so this is your value proposition. I help this kind of person to see this kind of outcome happen in their life so that they can receive all these benefits. And there you list as many benefits as possible. Okay, so we're getting more clear on your vision. And again, pause at any point to take some time to write that out. There's going to be power in you actually writing that out and not just thinking about it and conceiving of it mentally. Write it out, share it with someone, post it on social media, share it with your spouse, take your pastor out for coffee, share it with them, whatever you need to do to get this more cemented in your mind as well. So, okay, number 3, envisioning your future. So for this one, we're going to do a visioning exercise. And this is one of my favorite clarifying exercises that we can do. So what we're going to do for this one is you're going to write a paragraph or two, but here are your instructions. So you and I are having coffee in 3 to 5 years. And as we're having coffee, you're going to be explaining to me all the amazing things that have happened as you have grown as a communicator, all the results and amazing things that have happened. So just allow your faith to rise, your vision to rise, and think about if all of your wildest dreams came true and your prayers were answered in this area, what would you be reporting to me? And I'm going to ask you to write this in past tense as though it's already happened. So you might say to me, as we sit down for coffee, you might say, Rob, you wouldn't believe what has happened in the last 3 years. I've really grown as a communicator, and every week when I'm preaching in my church or preaching to my youth group, I'm getting positive feedback of people's lives being changed. And I'm keeping an encouragement book, and here are some of the things that people have been saying. One of the people in my youth group said, I struggled with my self-worth, but your talk that you gave last week is helping me to walk down the hallways of my school with new confidence, knowing that Jesus is with me and Jesus loves me. Rob, you wouldn't believe that my goal of speaking at 3 youth retreats per year has been fulfilled. Here's a story about what happened, and so on. So you get the picture here. What we're doing is we're writing this as though it's already happened. We're writing it in past tense, and that does a few different things for us. So that helps us to imagine the future with more faith, because sometimes as we look towards the future, we look towards the future with caution or with fear, or we even awfulize, and we imagine ourselves bombing in front of an audience, or bad things happening or not seeing the fruit that we want to see happen. So this process helps our brain to go into another level, and we start to imagine what the possibilities are. And so I want to encourage you to take a few moments now to go ahead, write out a paragraph or two, and write out what you would be saying to me if a lot of your dreams were coming true in this area of your life. So these are three steps that you can take to clarify your vision. Make sure you take the time to do that and share it with someone, share it on social media so that you can get that cemented in your mind and get really, really clear about where you're headed as a communicator. I want to share with you a few inspirational stories because I remember when I was first starting out as a speaker, I would have my expectation levels weren't very high. And it's good to know some of the things that can happen as you commit yourself to the process. And so just this last week, I was speaking at an event for a junior hockey team. And there was a guy there from the local FM radio station. And afterwards, he shot me a message and he said, "You are a rock star of compassion and community spirit." So what I'd done is I'd taken some biblical principles and taken them into that other context, which was for a community event. The focus was on mental health. And I just thought that was so cool that because what I know myself and I know all the insecurities that I had when I brought into this sense of calling. And so it's so cool to hear that kind of feedback, that there's someone there who, in this case, was really suffering, even physically, you could see with some anxiety, and sometimes he would have issues where his hand would shake a little bit. It was so good for him to come into that experience and just be able to get helped with the content and also experience peace in that context. So that was awesome. Another quick story for you is when Camille and I once took a team from Eston College on a World Action Team trip to Estonia. And one of the opportunities we had there was to go into some of the biggest prisons in the country. And I remember walking into this one that had razor wire up high on their fence and around that whole compound that they had. And we walked in, and as we're walking in, all these prisoners are just taking note and wondering, who are these people that are coming? And we had this room set aside where we had this outreach service. And we went in there, and the team did some drama and some singing, and I had the opportunity to share the gospel in that moment. I remember in that prison where prisoners would face possibly some retribution when they went back out into the yard if they responded to the gospel. But I remember there was about 25 men that raised their hand when it was time to respond. And it was such a beautiful moment because they knew that they might face some kind of penalty inside of that prison if they responded positively. And it was such a beautiful moment. It was kind of reminding me of back towards those early years when God was putting dreams inside of my heart to see an impact happen through speaking. Another couple of quick stories. Another one is this lady who was in, I'd say, her late 70s, heard me teaching at camp. And after one of the sessions, she came up to me and she was just getting a little bit weepy. And she said, "I'm realizing in that session, after you were teaching about coming out of toxic relationships, I realized that I have some toxic people in my life and I need to step back from those relationships for my own emotional health." And I was just kind of amazed because I thought, there's an ability that God can give us to relate to all different age groups. But it was amazing as well because here's someone who's sat in church for many, many years, many, many decades, and there was a new light, a new revelation, something new to help her in that moment. So I'm sharing all these stories, again, to help hopefully spark you and get you thinking about ways that God can use you in the future. Okay, take the time, get as clear as you can on what your vision is, and we'll look forward to the next step in the journey.